preface to Hunting of the Snark Lewis Carroll. If, and the thing is wildly possible, the charge of writing nonsense were ever brought against the author of this brief but instructive poem, it would be based, I feel convinced, on the line ampersand quo. Then the bowsprit got mixed with the rudder sometimes and quo. In view of this painful possibility, I will not, as I might, appeal indignantly to my other writings as a proof that I am incapable of such a deed. I will not, as I might, point to the strong moral purpose of this poem itself, to the arithmetical principles so cautiously inculcated in it, or to its nobile teachings in natural history. I will take the more prosaic course of simply explaining how it happened. The bellman, who is almost morbidly sensitive about appearances, used to have the bowsprit unshipped once or twice a week to be revarnished, and it more than once happened, when the time came for replacing it, that no one on board could remember which end of the ship it belonged to. They knew it was not of the slightest use to appeal to the bellman about it. He would only refer to his naval code, and read out in pathetic tones Admiralty instructions which none of them had ever been able to understand, so it generally ended in its being fastened on, anyhow, across the rudder. The helmsman used to stand by with tears in his eyes. He knew it was all wrong, but alas. Rule 42 of the code, ampersand quo. No one shall speak to the man at the helm and quo. Had been completed by the bellman himself with the words ampersand quo. And the man at the helm shall speak to no one and quo. So remonstrance was impossible, and no steering could be done till the next varnishing day. During these bewildering intervals the ship usually sailed backwards. This office was usually undertaken by the boots, who found in it a refuge from the baker's constant complaints about the insufficient blacking of his 3 pairs of boots. As this poem is to some extent connected with the lay of the Jabberwock, let me take this opportunity of answering a question that has often been asked me, how to pronounce and quo. Slithy toves and quo. The and quo. I and quo. In and quo. Slithy and quo. Is long, as in and quo. Rife and quo. And quo. Toves and quo. Is pronounced so as to rhyme with and quo. Groves and quo. Again, the first and quo. O and quo. In and quo. Borgives and quo. Is pronounced like the and quo. O and quo. In and quo. Borrow and quo. I have heard people try to give it the sound of the and quo. O and quo. In and quo. Worry and quo. Such is human perversity. This also seems a fitting occasion to notice the other hard words in that poem. Humpty Dumpty's theory, of 2 meanings packed into 1 word like a portmanteau, seems to me the right explanation for all. For instance, take the 2 words and quo. Fuming and quo. And quo. Furious and quo. Make up your mind that you will say both words, but leave it unsettled which you will say first. Now open your mouth and speak. If your thoughts incline ever so little towards and quo. Fuming and quo. You will say and quo. Fuming, furious and quo. If they turn, by even a hair's breadth, towards and quo. Furious and quo. You will say and quo. Furious, fuming and quo. But if you have that rarest of gifts, a perfectly balanced mind, you will say and quo. Frumious and quo. Supposing that, when Pistol uttered the well-known words under which King Bezonian, speak or die, just as Shallow had felt certain that it was either William or Richard, but had not been able to settle which, so that he could not possibly say either name before the other, can it be doubted that, rather than die, he would have gasped out and quo. Raucium. Ampersand quo.